A lot of QB recruiting news, a lot of just recruiting news in general. Florida State lost a commitment this week. Quarterback Chris Parson decommitted. Unless you're living under a rock, I mean, you know that you're familiar with that. You have heard it already. Haven't done a Spaces since it happened. Haven't done a podcast that was related to that. I mean, we talked with Coach Penske. We did the softball thing, which both of those are absolutely excellent. You should go check out our interview with Coach Brian Penske and then our softball watch party that we did with some of the girls. But haven't really had a chance to go on record and talk about it at all. Chris Parson was committed for almost a year, kind of the bell cow of the class. Grew up a Florida State fan, somebody that the staff did want to be in the class. Richie, I've got some takes. I've got some thoughts. I'm going to get this shared everywhere. I'm going to let you go for a minute and get some takes off about Parson decommitting and your thoughts around him, his recruitment, and all of that.
Yeah, real quick, guys, go back and watch that softball watch party. That was a blast. I think you, TJ and Sydney and all the ladies did a phenomenal job with that. I cannot wait for the next one. But yeah, Chris Parson decommits. It's probably the least surprising decommit, of the cycle so far. I think we all kind of saw this coming. You go back when Brendan in 247 dropped a headline basically just saying, hey, Dante Moore, 5-star quarterbacks coming to visit Florida State. It wasn't like a personal visit. He wasn't even considering us. He just came through with this team, and Chris Parson deleted everything Florida State from his Instagram account. Showed it was kind of a, fragile mentality, not to pile on a teenager because it's the biggest decision of his life. So definitely wish him nothing but the best, but it wasn't surprising. And then when Florida State, started offering Ricky Collins, Brock Glenn, he kind of started putting his offers. Oh, got an offer from Mississippi State, SMU, etc. I think it's good to have some finality, right? Because this was going to happen eventually. And I wish him nothing but the best, but it's like you said, the staff did want him, right? It's not like they pushed him out. They said, hey, we're trying to get someone else, so you should look elsewhere. No, we 100% wanted Chris Parson in this class. I think, he maybe just didn't feel like he was getting the love as the top quarterback. I don't buy into 100% the whole competition, afraid to compete thing, because anywhere you go, you're going to have to compete, right? But I do think, he just didn't feel like he was their guy. And that's where we are now. And now Mike Norvell, you better land Brock Glenn. One last note, it's worth mentioning that when Chris Parson committed, he committed to Kenny Dillingham, right? So now we have Tony Tokarz, and it sounds like Tokarz kind of preferred Glenn a little bit over Parson, which would make sense. A new quarterback coach and Alex Atkins, now the offensive coordinator, he's going to defer to Tony Tokarz for the quarterback. Like I said, this was coming eventually. I think we were all waiting. We've talked about this probably 2 months ago, TJ. I said he's probably not going to be in this class. So, again, I'm just happy to have some, finality to this whole thing. And we hope Brock Glenn commits to us. But your thoughts on Parson?
Yeah, I think it was, like you said, I think it was inevitable. I think it was going to happen. I do think there's an aspect of this. And like you mentioned, I think Tokarz prefers Glenn, thinks that Glenn has a higher ceiling. I think that, kind of when it's all said and done, I mean, I do think that, Glenn and Collins, that they pursued a little bit, but, that's kind of dead there. Like that's not like both sides have, got to meet and that's probably not going anywhere. But yeah, I do think that Glenn is probably going to be the better long-term option. And I think the staff realizes that. That's what the staff wants. But the staff did very much want, and we'll talk about Glenn. Richard here in the comments has a question about him. We'll talk about him in just a minute. But I do think the staff wanted him. I think the staff wanted to take two quarterbacks and have a battle and have competition. And Parson, his camp, well, I can't speak for Parson specifically, but I certainly know his camp did not want competition. His dad came on the Spaces and was passionate. I'll say that. Like I'm trying to be careful somewhat with what I say and not sound like I'm just bashing a dad that loves his kid, but he was very passionate. And if I was, if Bryant or Lincoln is, a 4 or 5 star recruit at some point, and I feel like they're, a staff that they've been loyal to is looking elsewhere, I'm probably going to feel some kind of way, as well. So I don't really blame him, but at the end of the day, Mike Norvell's tenure is going to be judged on what happens on the football field and not who he makes happy in a recruiting class, right? I think that if Mike Norvell and Tony Chokars and this staff think that someone else is a better fit for their offense and a better fit long term for what they're going to do, I mean, how do you blame them for going a different route? Like I think, like how, and his dad made a lot of good points about Chris being loyal and Chris being committed and Chris really being the bell cow of the class. All that's true. I don't think he's a bad kid or anything like that. But Mike Norvell is not going to have a job based on a kid being nice or loyal or whatever, And so they wanted him. There was a spot for him here. It seemed like they did not embrace competition at all. His dad came on the spaces and very much so was saying that they should not look at more quarterbacks. They should not recruit more quarterbacks. They should not, his quote,
the bar, I love it.
Which was, amazing. And we quoted it. Brendan put it in an article on 247. You go into a bar and there's 3 girls sitting there. One of them likes you, but you try and be greedy and get the other 2, and you end up leaving with nobody. I'm not sure if Florida State's going to leave with nobody. We'll get to Brock Glenn here in a second, but certainly did cost them Parson by recruiting other quarterbacks. That said, you can't be held hostage by a recruit or his dad, who, I know that there was some
You've played that game before.
Yeah, there was some frustration with some of the media and dealing with Parsons' dad. And so probably best for all parties to just kind of move on. You mentioned the Dante Moore situation. There was a situation where he kind of had a meltdown at an Elite 11 camp when he didn't originally get selected. Did play pretty well at the Elite 11 camp. You can't put all of your eggs into that one basket because several guys have done that and you've never heard about him again. But wish Chris the very best. Wish him the best of luck going forward. But at the end of the day, Florida State has to do what's best for them. I think Florida State wanted to take 2 quarterbacks in this class. I believe I saw a stat out there that 53% of the quarterbacks starting this season are transfers. Transferred at some point. That's in in the 130 teams,
including 56. Florida State's quarterback, right?
Yeah, Florida State's quarterback. LSU's quarterback. Like a lot of the teams that we play. So half of quarterbacks are transfers as far as starters go. You can't count on, and there's injuries. There's just who knows what. You have to protect yourself as a staff. You needed to take 2 guys. And again, I don't think it's disrespectful to Parson to recruit another quarterback. They were upfront about it. They were honest about it. And if he didn't want to come in and compete, which clearly, based on what his dad said and by his actions, he didn't want to compete, then good luck. Good luck somewhere else, whether that's Mississippi State, whether that's SMU, wherever you go. You have to be realistic. Yeah, that's a great point. It's okay to look out for your child's best interest. At the same time, you have to teach your child that adversity will come their way. Sometimes they have to stand up and fight for what they want. If you want to be that guy, if you love Florida State, if you bleed garnet and gold, whatever, all these euphemisms, go out there and prove that you're better, right? If you're better, be better. If this guy's not as good as you, then what's the big deal? If you don't compete, it very much seems like you're scared. And that, I'm not trying to downgrade a kid or whatever. Hope the very best for him, but those are my thoughts. I also think, again, ton of drama with his dad. He go on spaces and, rant for 10 minutes. That's, even if you are passionate, just love your kid. Like, it's never well received. It's not a great look.
It's really similar to last year, right? Nico Marchio was all in on Florida State, right? He was the bell cow of the class. He was probably our best recruiter early on. And he said he knew that Florida State was going to take another quarterback and it didn't bother him. But within a week of AJ Duffy committing, Nico says, no, I'm out, man. And guess what? He didn't play a single snap at West Virginia this year. So again, to the point, you're going to have to compete wherever you go. So I don't put a whole lot of stock into the competition thing because there's quarterbacks on every single roster. But I do think Florida State, we need to get our quarterback room in shape because I like Jordan Travis. I don't think AJ Duffy's quite ready. I hope he could prove me wrong. It should, we need him this year. I don't like anybody behind him, and that's not a shot at anybody. That's just the facts. So we definitely do need more than one quarterback. Hopefully it'll be Brock Glenn and maybe another one or a transfer. But yeah, the quarterback room has to be reassured. And Mike Norvell like you mentioned, TJ, you cannot be held hostage by a kid. We saw that with Willie Taggart and Sam Howell and how that ended up, right? It
Yeah.
just doesn't work. So again, best of luck to Chris Parson. But again, no different from the Nico and AJ situation last year.
Yeah. And I think it'll be telling where Chris ends up. There have been some crystal balls that have put him to Mississippi State. You know, and it'll be interesting to see kind of his career trajectory, like how that ends up, where he lands, and things like that. So, all right, Brock Glenn, Richie, you can start us off here. I'm going to share a couple more things, and let's talk a little bit about Brock Glenn. There's been some crystal balls his way. Florida State feels pretty good about some things, but where are you at, and what are your thoughts on how this is all going to kind of go down here soon?
So he plans to decide soon, but he hasn't, committed, for lack of better words, to an actual date yet. I think we need to get him committed before the dead period at the end of the month, because if he waits through the dead period, because, Ohio State, Auburn, and now LSU is the most recent that's involved with him, right? So if he waits beyond the dead period and then takes a visit to LSU, I think Florida State fans have a real reason to worry. But if he commits before then, I feel really good about Florida State. I believe Ohio State already has a quarterback committed. And I just think it's like we mentioned, this is who Tony Tokars and have kind of prioritized as QB1 now that Parson is out of the class. A lot of crystal balls for Brock Glenn to Florida State. That the Mike Norvell and the staff, some of the staff know him because he's from the Memphis area. So they've been in contact with him, since before they were at Florida State. It's a great opportunity for Florida State to capitalize on here and land his commitment. You have to do it though, right? Like, again, we did not push Parson out. He was 100% a take if he wanted to stay in this class. But by going hard after Brock Glenn, it's a fact that you knew that was going to potentially make Parson leave the class, which he did. So you got to land him, because if he ends up at LSU or Ohio State or somewhere else, we're in rough shape, because I don't think Ricky Collins is even in play for Florida State anymore.
Yeah, he's not. They've moved on there. Ricky's moved on there. And that's not somebody they're actively pursuing. There are some other potential names that could come up that, Florida State will pursue. At this time, those names aren't necessarily out there, but there does seem to kind of be some smoke around a second quarterback, which again, Florida State has been open and up front that they have wanted to take a second quarterback. And I don't think that, that's going to shock anybody if they do. I feel pretty good about Glenn. I don't think Auburn's really in play. I think LSU is somebody to kind of look at. I think that Ohio State is still trying to, or Ohio State is going after the Baylor kid. So sorry, I don't have that off the top of my head, but I think Ohio State, I don't want to say they're not in it right now, but if they're
not all in.
They worry me. Yeah, they worry me a little bit less, because I think that they kind of have another target in mind. And so I feel good. I feel like Florida State's in a good spot. Auburn doesn't really worry me at all. I think that Florida State's in a really good spot for Brock Glenn. I do think, and he said that he wants to commit before the end of the month. I think if that happens, it will be FSU, minus something crazy happening. But this is recruiting, and you can never count your. Even after he commits, we'll
not over.
Kind of see. We'll get to December and then go from there. But I like Florida State here. We put in a crystal ball the other day for Simmons, and that ended up being true. But if I had a crystal ball, I'd probably put it in for Glenn. I think I feel good there.
100% put it in. And like I said, if it goes past the dead period, I go from Florida State to Foggy, because I think that's what they allow for the crystal balls. So yeah, it's imperative, in my opinion. And I'm not trying to be dramatic or anything, but it's imperative we get him committed before the dead period, because I think that puts us in a really good position. And then